So I thought I'd just spend a bit of time talking about this appeal case, Laura Hindle versus the NMC. And Laura took her case to the High Court with the support of the Royal College of Nursing. Having been suspended for a period of 6 months, she wanted to appeal the decision because she felt it was very unfair and not appropriate at all. So the Royal College of Nursing supported her, which is quite rare. But they did support her and they took it to appeal, and that went to the High Court last November. She was there for the whole day, and then she had to wait for the judge to hand his decision down. And he's finally handed his decision down last week. And we were really, really thrilled to hear that he'd decided in favour of the registrant and allowed the appeal in full. Now, it's quite unusual for this to happen. Firstly, it's quite unusual, first of all, for the Royal College of Nursing to support appeals because, the risk is high and obviously there are costs associated if they lose. They have to have an above 51% chance of winning in order to take it forward. So quite often the RCN will say that unfortunately they just can't suggests that there's a strong enough possibility of winning in order to take it to the High Court. So in that circumstance, you're left with the position that you can only be a litigant in person if you want to go forward. And obviously a lot of people, after the battles that they've had and the long process they've had already, feel very ill-equipped to be able to go to the High Court and represent themselves. So quite often people will give up at that point. So to have one of our members of NMC Watch actually go to appeal and win is just fantastic news, because the judge has done a really thorough job and he's really gone above and beyond really to explain his reasonings and to really critique both the decision of the panel and also the decision making and the process, the case management of the NMC. And a lot of the themes that we're finding are actually themes that we see quite often in cases, in members coming to us and saying, look, this has happened, that's happened, why? And a lot of this has been summed up in the case. So I just thought I'd look at some key aspects and talk you through them a little bit. So the first point I wanted to talk about was the judge stated that a vital element of the panel's task in these proceedings was to decide which witnesses' accounts could be relied upon in relation to the various disputed allegations. In my judgment, this required the panel to take into account the extent to which each of the key witnesses was generally credible and reliable, and whether there were other factors present which should cause her or his evidence to be viewed with caution or circumspection. Now, in this case, there were 4 members of staff that Laura Hindle managed, and they had a grievance against her and they collaborated in order to put together evidence to try and bring her down. Unfortunately, there was an independent investigation at her employer, and that was very thorough, and that actually highlighted a lot of the issues that Laura herself said during her hearing, that the witnesses had collaborated to get their story straight, and that they'd often changed their stories as well. When one of her witnesses came and gave his evidence for her, they were able to show that some of the evidence that the NMC's witnesses gave wasn't quite stacking up. So it's really important that the NMC have a neutral stance when they're looking at these cases. Obviously, it's important that people feel that they can come to the regulator with any concerns, whether they're staff members, members of the public, anybody. But it's also important that those allegations are valid and they're not used as a way of getting your own back on a colleague that perhaps you've clashed with, or a manager that perhaps you haven't felt has managed you properly, or for whatever reason. The regulatory proceedings are not for that purpose. And I think generally the NMC have not done so well with this aspect. They've the whole area of vexatious referrals and retaliative referrals, we know are very present within regulation. The GMC have a very robust policy on this, as does Social Work England. They recognise that some allegations and some referrals will come from not a place of patient safety, but in order to cause trouble for the person that they're alleging. So The NMC, up until this date, does not have a policy on vexatious or retaliative referrals, and it's something we've been urging them for some time to look at. So hopefully after this case they will.